Hey guys, I'm Navneet Singh. If you just look at the energy in these halls, it's pretty clear that we're living in unprecedented times. It's the biggest AI boom we've ever seen. But what's really heartening to me and to my speakers here, Richard, Jake, Shishir, and Arun, is that this time around, enterprise is front and center. It's the first boom that I remember where enterprise is seeing mass adoption of AI. So in this session, we're going to look at applications of enterprise AI and take a peek into the future of AI as well. Our first speaker is Richard Socher, CEO of U.com. Richard hardly needs an introduction. He's one of the key people that brought NLP into the age of deep learning while he was at Stanford, where he got his PhD and also taught computer science. Before U.com, he was chief scientist of Salesforce, where he ended up because Salesforce acquired his startup, MetaMind. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to invite Richard on stage.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. Since we're in the Computer Science History Museum, I'll start with a little bit of history. So in 2010, I and a handful of other researchers got really excited about this idea of using neural networks for natural language processing. It was very much a niche subject with literally a handful of researchers. And I was very excited at the time to think about a single neural network that can solve many different tasks in natural language processing. Over the next 8 years, the community had grown a bunch. And in 2018, with my team at Salesforce Research, we finally submitted a paper led by Brian McCann, first author and now also co-founder at U.com, to have a single model for the 10 hardest NLP tasks. In order to make that work, we had to invent what we now call prompt engineering. We called it answering questions over a paragraph. And you could ask, what is the sentiment of this tweet? What's the translation of that sentence into German? What is the summary of this paragraph? And all of these different questions you would trigger to just get answers from a single model. And that was our idea for trying to unify most of everything in natural language processing. So this was a research line of thought, almost a decade in the making. I was super excited about this culmination of this passion that I've had for many years. We submitted it to ICLR. We thought clearly this should be a very impactful paper, and that was what we got back from the reviewers. Misguided and overcrowded. Why aren't you working on a single task and show me that you very carefully did better on that one task? You know, those researchers, 95% of all researchers at that time had worked their entire careers on one task. They worked just on sentiment or just on translation. And they didn't like this idea that we would do it all in one model. Then literally, anonymous reviewer number 2 famously wrote, "There's no such thing as general question answering. Not even for humans." And I'm like, have you heard of this thing called the brain? Like, pretty sure we don't switch it out every time we answer different questions. Long story short, area chair was absolutely certain this paper was not worthy of being presented at the conference. Now, the silver lining was that we did inspire a few other people to work on this line of research. Alec Radford, Ilya Sutskever, in their papers early on at OpenAI when they got into NLP, actually were inspired and said, yes, as exemplified by McCann et al., language provides a flexible way to specify task inputs and outputs, all as a sequence of symbols. The rest of this is more well-known history, GPT-2, 3, ChatGPT, and so on. But I still thought for a long time, like, how come these reviewers had such different views on where AI can be or should be? And I think it boiled down, in my view, on a confusing dual state that the field of AI is currently in. And the states I call electricity and AGI research. On the left side, we have the electricity state of AI. We solve a single task. We have a very concrete problem, sentiment analysis. We get a lot of data. We train a large neural net, and we can solve anything that we have a lot of training data for, we can now solve, no problem. And very often, when we solve tasks in that electricity state, and the reason I call it electricity is because we've understood the basic principles, and just like electricity, you can now electrify / AIify lots of different industries out there. The reason we call it that, is that, and like, we basically often don't even call these things AI anymore. Right now, you're just using a chess app on your phone. You're just using Siri. But that was the culmination of many years of research and the pinnacle of AI, to be able to program a chess computer and things like that. Now, on the other side, we have the sort of elusive goal of AGI research, where we still try to build general purpose systems. And what we're seeing now with these LLMs is that they're indeed multitask learners. They can solve many different tasks in a single model. And I think that's a very important step towards AGI. I'm not saying we're there yet, but that is sort of the confusion, that there are these two states. A lot of folks mostly work, and researchers have worked for most of their careers on single tasks. Now, there's no better place to exemplify the crazy progress we've seen and the merging of these two states. They're getting closer and closer to one another than we have in search. In the beginning of this year, we're the only LLM that had an internet connection and give you citations and things like that. That idea now feels like strawberry jam in a supermarket. There are like many, many copycats, big and small, of this idea. But it came about much earlier. In the beginning of 2022, we brought LLMs into search results, like a standard search results, like 10 blue links, but we felt like clearly you could do better. If I asked, like, how do I program this Python Fibonacci function or something like that, it wouldn't make sense to have 10 blue links. It would make sense to give you a code snippet, given, like, programmed by an LLM, and then maybe some reference links. So that's what we did. But whenever we deviated a little bit too much from the Google-like experience, a lot of users would say, I'm so used to Google, I don't like it when it's too different. That all changed with ChatGPT last year, and so we also moved. And a lot of people were also skeptical because ChatGPT isn't up to date. You can't train an LLM every 10 seconds a news article comes out. It doesn't give you citations for where it gets the facts, and it hallucinates a bunch. And again, a bunch of researchers from that first state of AI who worked on single tasks say, well, that's because it's just ill-conceived to try to build a single model for all of question answering. But we thought, no, let's just fix those problems. And so late last year, we were the first to solve these kinds of problems where if you asked who won the soccer World Cup, it wouldn't know because it happened after the training cutoff. And instead, we gave it access to the internet. It can search the web and then give you a citation and know where that fact comes from and tell you the right answer. Now, the second problem was that it still would sometimes hallucinate, and even if it didn't hallucinate, as much as I love text, text isn't always the right answer for every question. If I ask, like, what's the stock market or what's the weather, I don't want to read 3 paragraphs about that. And so we allowed the LLM also to decide to give multimodal or differently formatted answers. In this case, for instance, a stock ticker quote. And then the last thing that we found is that these models have a lot of trouble with when it comes to what Daniel Kahneman said called system 2 thinking, or thinking slow, which is hard, logical, mathematical, and complex reasoning tasks. And it is particularly bad because often these models would pretend to be doing it, but not actually doing it right. Like, and you can test this out by just asking for a large multiplication of 2 numbers, and it will pretend to be multiplying them correctly, but it's just the wrong numbers that come out. And so what we decided is that we need to have the ability for these models to program. And here you see an example of that, maybe. Should be a video. Oh, no video. Oh, well. Here you would see that it will actually code an answer for you. If you say @agent into u.com and you ask, like, calculate me a mortgage, or what weight would a box that weighs this much on Earth be on the moon, it will literally pull up all the physics constants and then program it for you, run that code, then look at the output, think if that output was right, and if not, continue to code until it gets you the right answer. And that will change, I think, all of education, research, and allow LLMs to be even more accurate when it comes to very complex reasoning tasks. Now, I want to end on this analogy of a mirror. I think AI, as these AGI models get better and more general, will be increasingly a mirror to society and to humanity. And it will only be as good as the people, the data sets, and the systems that we train it, and that train it and use it, and that we bring to the mirror. And as such, it will pick up a lot of the biases that we have, not just in the output, but also in the problems that we're trying to solve. At U.com, we decided we want to solve for an AI assistant. At some point, we actually stopped calling it a search engine and started calling it an AI assistant that helps you with search, but it also helps you to create, to write poetry, to write essays, to code, to learn, and so on. And I invite you all to give it a try, U.com. We now also have APIs, since we are an enterprise session. I'll end on that. A lot of folks have asked us, can we have a retrieval augmented generation just like you've had for almost a year? And we're now offering that under documentation.u.com. And so you also can make your LLMs more up-to-date, factual, and have citations. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Very inspiring. And guys, just to remind you, please ask questions on Slido. We're going to take a few at the end, depending on how much time we have remaining. I know we stand between you and lunch, but trust me, we've got 3 more amazing speakers, and we're going to save the best for last. Sorry, Shishir and Jake. If you haven't seen Arun on stage, you guys are in for a treat. So my next speaker is Jake Heller, the CEO of Casetext. We all use co-pilots nowadays. It's become a household name. Jake's company has built the first co-counsel, the first legal AI assistant. Jake studied law at Stanford Law, where he was president of Stanford Law Review. And he's going to tell us share his thoughts on how to use AI applications in law.
All right, who's pumped to hear about how, AI, one further, AI for legal tech? Woo! Yeah, all right. What I'm going to be speaking about here is how you build AI assistants for professionals, which we feel pretty strongly is going to be the future of a lot of very impactful enterprise software. We did it in law, but my guess is that people in this room today will be doing this for finance, accounting, medicine, and many other places to build great businesses and help professionals. First, a little bit of background. We have been working for the last 10 years to apply AI to legal concepts. And let me tell you, and if you don't believe me, ask my investors, it was a sleepy, totally ignored place for the vast majority of the last 10 years. But everything changed with GPT-4. What we saw when we got, luckily, early access to GPT-4 about a little over a year ago was, for the first time, a model that can achieve our ambitions of providing real support to attorneys across a multitude of different kinds of applications. And to maybe Quentin Tarantino this, show you the end of the story at the beginning, things went swimmingly well after releasing our new product co-counsel about 7 months ago. We're the first time ever for a company like us, we're not just in the legal tech blogs, but on places like CNN and the Wall Street Journal and MSNBC, and even the MIT Technology Review. But also, as of about 2 months ago, we just got acquired by Thomson Reuters for $650 million in cash. So you may be wondering, how might I do the Casetext story, but probably better? Here's how we did it, and here's what we recommend that folks think about when you think about building professional enterprise-grade solutions for AI assistants. So let's first start with this concept of an AI assistant, which again, I think for most of you may be kind of an obvious concept if you work at things like Copilot or U.com and other places. For us in the professional setting, it really means two things. The first thing is you should build a new user interface. For a customer, it should feel like talking to a colleague, right? They've just onboarded a new employee. And for probably the vast majority of this room that's played with ChatGPT, you've already experienced that thing. By the way, most professionals you may be building for haven't even tried ChatGPT yet, right? So for a lot of folks, this is like a revelation in a new way of interacting with computing. But much more important is a concept that we use called skills, by which we mean that you are able to delegate to your AI assistant real, complex, substantive tasks and have the expectation that it does them at a high level of accuracy and at superhuman speeds. So again, for your customers, it should feel like that you've just onboarded your next, kind of new employee to the firm, to the company, to wherever, to help you, to assist you with the tasks that you want to do. So at the core of this is what we call skills. And what we mean by skills, again, is from the professional standpoint, you should feel like you're delegating a task to an AI. In our case, which I'll go for in a second, are things like, hey, legal research this question for me, or read these 1,000 documents and answer the following questions about them. Where is the fraud? Is there any evidence of fraud in these 1,000 documents? Or read these medical records and make a timeline of them, et cetera. So how do you build one of these skills? How do you do it at a high level of accuracy and reliability, but able to execute at superhuman speeds? There are a few different principles. The first, again, is skills should look like things that people currently do in the workplace. Everything I mentioned links back to something that real human attorneys do today, right? Attorneys, paralegals, legal assistants. The second thing you do is you ask yourself the question, and we were advantaged in that many of the folks at our company were formerly lawyers. How would the best possible lawyer attack this problem? How would the best possible doctor attack this problem? Or how would they research this question to answer, what the correct diagnosis is, or what the law says about a particular issue? For example, if a lawyer is doing legal research, they might, run 20 different searches, pull back thousands of cases, read every single one of them from beginning to end, synthesize that information, and write that into a memorandum to respond to their client. If that's what the best possible human would do, turn that into code. Of course, a lot of that code is going to be prompts in today's day and age. For a lot of the tasks that you do as professionals, they are complex, difficult, require high-level thinking. So things that, at least in our field in law, we saw GPT-4 to be amazingly good at, right? Read this section of a document and tell me, does it contain a joke? That wasn't a thing you could just do, right? Exactly as Richard was saying, you have to spend your whole 10 years just focusing on the joke detection algorithm, right? Now that it comes out of the box, not for free, as I say for free, not for free, very expensively through APIs like GPT-4, right? A really important piece of this is testing vigorously. What we have found is that the quality of a prompt matters dramatically. Think about it like a set of instructions that you're going to give to a million random people. They have to execute those instructions in the prompt. And you want those instructions to be so good that those a million random people will all do exactly the right thing. For example, not base their information and knowledge on anything outside of the prompt, including the text that they're evaluating, right? I.e., don't hallucinate. Answer in the correct format, answer in the correct way. What we have found is that if you write about 1,000 test cases against the prompt, that will generalize pretty well. So if your prompt can pass 1,000 different test cases you throw at it, and you iterate and iterate and iterate, it is a painful process in today's day and age. Maybe at GPT-5 it won't be. Today it is. But if you write 1,000 tests, you're probably going to be pretty good at the application behaving accurately across millions of different inputs. So a quick example for us, it'll be a little hard for the folks to read in the back. This is the idea of co-counsel. What you see on the right side is a conversation with the AI, right? I work at this company, I need you to research something for me, and they said, just to clarify, you want me to research this? And you're like, yep. And then it goes and writes its research memo for you in about 3 minutes, right? Again, behind the scenes, what's happening when it's executing that skill is it is literally drafting its own searches, reading thousands of results simultaneously, synthesizing the information into a memorandum and responding to the user with that kind of draft. And then the other example we use is, like, I have to upload these 15 documents. Can you answer the following questions for me? Like, Do any of these evidence contain potential evidence of fraud? Is there a joke, racially tinged joke in the documents, which is a kind of common thing lawyers might be investigating, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it comes back with a table, structured output, having read those 15 documents in about 2 minutes, giving you, dashes where it didn't find the thing it's looking for, yeses or nos or maybes where it did find an answer to your question, right? So that's an example of how these kind of interfaces might look like. I want to wrap up with what it looks like to build for professionals. They really care about 3 things. The first is reliability and citability. You cannot just have the AI just give back what would naturally come out of the prompt. It needs to cite to evidence, something that Richard touched on. Absolutely right. The second thing is scale. Most professionals can read a document just as fast as GPT-4 can, maybe a little slower, but they'll feel more confidence in it. What you get real benefit and real value out of an AI is when you do millions of examples. And finally, security and data privacy we can have a whole talk about. So one last second here. My prediction is that our exit will look small compared to something that somebody builds in this room today. We are in the top 10, I think, of all YC exits, private exits. We're going to soon be in the bottom 40. You guys are going to build some really amazing things, whether you're YC or not. And the reason is that the TAM here is enormous. We have transferred from building software in technology industries to salaries, to put it bluntly. And I hope folks here build really amazing things outside of not just legal, but everywhere else. There's a lot of opportunity to go. Go get it and start now. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jake. We're going to hurry things up a bit. We've gotten a couple of questions on Slido. Keep them coming. Our next speaker is Shishir, CEO of Coda. And he'll tell you about Coda as well as share his views on AI in the enterprise. Shishir.
All right, thanks. All right, so we're going to talk today about AI in the enterprise. And I'm just going to talk about 3 key learnings for what we've seen so far with AI in the enterprise. A little bit about my background. Like many people here, started at MIT, worked at a number of different places, really got my first deep exposure with AI at YouTube. But at Coda, it's completely changed how we think about the whole product and how we think about the space of documents. We all know generative AI took the world by storm. As consumers, we all saw interfaces like these. Apparently allowed Sal to write a nice joke for Surya that we heard about in the last session. Created pictures of where we're going to put furniture in the house. But there was a real question about what is this going to look like at work? And it turned out that just taking ChatGPT and bringing it into your workplace wasn't a particularly effective way to get things to be more efficient at work. We started on our AI journey at Coda about a year ago now, just released our newest version of Coda AI 2 weeks ago. And there's 3 primary things we've seen here as people describe to us what they want out of an AI work assistant. So the first thing is obvious. I want an AI work assistant that hasn't just read the internet, but it's actually read what's in my company. The second thing is I want it to live where I live. I don't want to go somewhere else and work on in another place, paste over prompts, and come back. And then finally, I want it to actually do stuff for me. It's one thing to get answers very quickly. It's a very different thing to go and automate things on my behalf. As you were saying, we want to replace salaries, not just software. In the course of building this, what we found is that each of these has a core challenge, and I'll talk a little bit about each one. Understanding information in your company seems really hard. We talk a lot about privacy. A lot of people talk about training on your data, but we found the hardest challenge here was the permissions inside a company. Turns out they're a lot more complicated than you may believe. Second is being omnipresent really requires rethinking the UI of your product. And as you're building your products, think about what does it really feel like to have someone work alongside you in your product. And then finally, once you tell AI they can do things for you, you enter this new scary world. You can do 10x as much stuff, but you have to be really careful about what you let it do on your behalf. A little bit about Coda. So Coda is an all-in-one doc. We blend documents, spreadsheets, presentations, and applications into one surface, used by about 50,000 teams now, about 2 million people from lots of interesting places. A couple notable things about Coda as we talk about AI. The first is that we have a open platform for connecting Coda to other systems. It's called PAX. over the last couple of years, about 600 of these have been built. So Coda can now connect to applications like Salesforce and Greenhouse and Jira and Zoom and so on. And the other part of that is you can not only pull information in, you can write back to it, and you can cause it to perform actions. So you can tell Coda, I'd like to send an email, I'd like to schedule a Zoom call, I'd even like to ship a package. And in the last year, we've automated about 4 billion tasks. So with that backdrop in mind, we started thinking about how we would approach an AI work assistant. And I'll show you a little bit of what we did and a couple of lessons we learned along the way. So the first one we started with was, how do we build an enterprise work assistant that really understands what's happening in your company? And the first interface we built was what everybody expected. We built ChatGPT in your docs. Looks like that's in your bottom right. You can go and ask it questions like, ooh, the questions are not playing. OK, I'll describe the questions. I don't think our GIFs are working. So you can go and ask this questions like, who's in charge of my HR policy? You can ask it when do we get vacations? But the more interesting applications happen when you start to pull in real data into your document. So this is a case where one of our customers pulled events and opportunities. So that's a sync from their calendar and a sync from Salesforce. And the question they asked here was, go rank my calendar based on how important my meetings are. And it'll come back with an answer that says, these are the meetings you should really pay attention to today. So that's really interesting. But what you don't want to be able to do is say things like, again, I'm missing the prompt. You don't want to be able to say things like, who's getting promoted this week? And a lot of the challenges that happen here is we spend a lot of time thinking about how do we not send data off to OpenAI, have it train on it, and return things back to us. But actually, the hardest problem isn't that. The hardest problem is the internet is mostly open to the world, but data inside a company tends to carry very different permissions. And building an AI model that actually understands that is a particularly big challenge. All right, second thing is you want to build an AI system where it feels like part of your actual work experience. So this is a case of what the first experience we wanted to provide is just be able to instruct your AI assistant in the middle of your document. So you want to come in here and say, I want to write a spec, I want to write a PR, and it'll go fill in the rest of this. Next thing you want to be able to do is have it act right alongside you. In documents, the most obvious place that shows up is in toolbars. And so we started by thinking about what are all the things we could stick in a toolbar that would allow it to give it an instruction. I want you to take this paragraph, summarize it, shorten it, elaborate. Turned out things like conversion and so on were really interesting. But the really interesting one we ended up doing was to think of it more like someone you share your document with. So on the right side here, you see you can go and instruct Coda AI and say, just go mark up my document. And it'll go through, it'll add comments, it'll add suggested changes, and act like it's reviewing your document right alongside you. All right, last important thing is we want an AI system that actually does things for us, but it takes a lot of control. So this is an example where one of our customers took our AI, and as they took notes in the meeting, they have a meeting summary that gets generated, and they added a button there that says, send this summary to Slack. Really simple example. This is another one where somebody took Salesforce, they synced in their Salesforce data, and gave it a prompt that said, generate an email response to every single one of these accounts, and create a button that actually sends those emails. Now, the interesting thing about this is, as we were building this, we realized that people needed all sorts of different control. How do I think about who this is taking action on behalf of? How do I audit what they did? How do I put a human in the loop in the middle of it to actually approve the email that's about to be sent? And you end up with interesting examples that look like this, where you say, I'm going to take all the calls I had for my meetings. I'm going to have one button that goes and logs it to Salesforce. I'm going to have another column there that goes and extracts the action items and then sends that in Slack to my team. Then I'm going to have another one there that creates a follow-up email, and I'm going to click a button, and it's going to send it to all these people. All right, so as you think about building enterprise AI solutions, in addition to everything else interesting we can talk about with AI, think hard about what it means to respect the permissions of AI inside companies. Think about user experiences that really blend what your UI would feel like with an assistant in place. And finally, as you think about automating actual tasks, think about the levels of control that are required to make sure you really trust the AI. All right, thank you very much.
Hey everyone, it is amazing to be here and see this room filled and to come after three giants in the space. What a treat. I'll give a little lighter talk as we get into lunchtime. So this is about AI in no code. And so what's been interesting is we've all been talking about AI in the enterprise, and we've had some really technical talks. We just looked at some awesome papers that Richard wrote. And the question is, okay, but what about everybody else who's trying to build with AI? Most of the enterprise is a bunch of folks in operations, marketing, delivery, and they're saying, I want to build these cool things, but what is an LLM and what are we doing here? And so I'm going to give you a quick background on Thunkable just to give you a little context on why I'm giving this talk, and then if we haven't run out of time yet, I'll actually tell you about some cool things in no code. So that's me. You can see my face. What is Thunkable? We're the no-code platform to build native mobile apps. We have over 3.5 million users who have built over 10 million apps in 184 countries. So where's my co-founder? Wei, are you there? Wave, Wei. All right, that's my co-founder, Wei. We've been working on AI in no code since 2015. Here's some fun photos of us. Wei and I went to MIT together. We were in the lab together, and we had an idea where we said, okay, wouldn't it be cool if anyone could build mobile apps? And then we said, yeah, how do we do that? Well, code is hard, so what if we go no code? No code sounds good. So we built a no code tool. And what does it look like? You got some drag and drop blocks. Some of you might recognize these and say, hey, doesn't that look like MIT Scratch? I was part of the Scratch team. We built Scratch. Then we said, wouldn't it be cool if you could make a Scratch-like thing for mobile apps? So we built Thunkable. And so basically your code looks like blocks, and you have a nice designer that helps you make your UI. And then we said, well, actually, what would be really great is if we could use AI, because no code makes coding easier, because now it's no code. It's in the name. It's pretty straightforward. But what would be even cooler is if AI could help you with that. So we said, okay, well, what is AI going to do? And our conclusion was there are 3 ways that AI is going to help you. 1, AI within the app experience. So if you're building an app, not just mobile app, this is generally for any app, users are going to want AI within the experience that helps them. I'll show you a demo of that in a little bit. Number 2, the cool thing that everyone's talking about right now, AI to help you build apps. This idea of, can I generate the code? Can I generate the app itself using natural language? And lastly, a thing people haven't thought about, everyone's thinking about building these complicated LLMs. What about no code to actually help you build your AIs? So I'll get into each of these. So first off, AI within the app experience. This is something that we've been doing for a long time, and a lot of people have been doing and are now remembering that, yeah, this is all AI, right? Text-to-speech, speech-to-text, image recognition, etc. Right? Why do you like doing that? Because now you can plug into your hardware, you can take a photo, you can do image recognition, etc. Dynamic user experience based on user attributes. Obviously, that's a nice thing. Tailored user journeys. If you've taken, online adaptive exams when you wanted to go to grad school or business school, that's been going on for a while, right? And so that's the cool thing about AI within the apps, and that's something that you've been able to do within our product and many products for a long time. I'll show you a demo of that in a little bit. Next up, AI to help you build apps. Now, this is where, in the last year, everything's gotten fun. Everybody's put out at least a demo of, this is our cool Gen AI thing to help us make our app, right? And what's that going to mean? You get AI-powered workflows. You get all your repetitive tasks are now automated. You get, in general, innovation is going to be accelerated because everyone has access to cool AI things. And of course, we talk about no-code tooling specifically. So how does this actually work? I am going to show you a quick video of all of these things, under a minute. All right, so first off, here is the Thunkable designer. And so one thing we do, the first thing you got to do, text generation. So we said, okay, hey, I have a rose bouquet. I don't like those words. Let me change it. I changed it. I clicked on the suggestion. Now I've updated it. Next, I need an image. What do? I type in what I want the image to be. Before, I had to go to a search engine, download the image, look at the licensing. I probably ignored it, and then I'd upload it. Now, I just get to type in, I want a pink rose bouquet. I click the button. Boom. Now I have a pink rose bouquet. This is cool. But now I'm like, shoot, I didn't make a login screen. And now we get to the second piece of actually generating your app. I go to our little Gen AI thing and I type in, hey, I want a pink and gray login screen that'll match my app. So what happens, we do that, we hit generate, and boom, now a login screen is generated. Then why does no code even matter? Well, it's not everything's perfect. You put out an Xcode app, it's not perfect. So what you do is you tweak it in the code. Same way you spit out something in no code, but it looks like the height, the colors weren't great there, but it looks like the height wasn't perfect, the width wasn't perfect, so we adjusted it. Boom. And that's why using AI and no code is awesome. And that was the video you just saw. Next up, AI accelerates innovation. We all know this. So I talked about those first 2 things, AI within the app AI to build your app. And then the last piece I want to touch on is no code to build AI. So what's cool is no code tools have stayed very up to date on many of them on what is going on in AI. So like I said, with us, you can use image recognition. You have access to OpenAI and their various things that they offer, ChatGPT, et cetera. And so what's cool is now you can actually use that to say, hey, I want to plug in this AI thing to that AI thing to that AI thing and actually come up with a new use case. And so here's kind of the last thing I want to show is a quick demo that is, by a demo, I mean a full video of one of our users in London. There's a man named Nathan Burley, and this video will play in a moment. And there's a man named Nathan Burley, and what he does is he works for Scientific Support Services Limited, and they deal with a bunch of lab equipment. That's good enough for now. So what he did, he was like, man, I got to do a lot of repairs. And so he'd have to fly different places. So instead what he did is he got this RealWear Navigator 500 headset, and he was like, okay, instead of sending equipment places and whatever, I'm going to walk in, I'm going to take a picture with this headset. Then I'm going to do image recognition. Then I'm going to send it, and then I'm going to also do a speech-to-text thing, send it to Google. Google will speech-to-text it. What are they going to do? They're going to send my image with my speech-to-text. They're going to send it to I think it was OpenAI GPT 3.5 at that time. We're going to get results. Hey, what's wrong here? What can I do? Get the feedback, come back, and send it to the app. The app figures out what's going on, text-to-speeches, and talks to you. And now gives you the result. So what used to be a week of work, he said, is now 3 hours and can be done entirely remotely. And that's, I think, the last super cool piece about AI and no code is actually no code helping you combine a bunch of different AI to get a really, really sweet user experience. All right, with that, last point. AI makes us more human, not less. I think this is a thing that keeps getting missed. And people are talking all about, oh, but the AIs are replacing the humans. What it's allowing us to do is replace the boring jobs, the boring automated things, and actually let us use our creativity, like Nathan, who used to sit in the field and is now an engineer building cool AI apps for his entire company and supporting thousands and thousands of lab equipment pieces all across the world. With that, I appreciate it. I'm going to turn it back over to Navneet.
Come on up. We'll just take 2 questions. The mic's working. And this should be less than 5 minutes. The first question I'll direct to Jake and Shishir. And it goes, how do you think about the incumbents versus startups AI race in your respective enterprise sectors?
We joined an incumbent, so I am the incumbent. I think the incumbency effect is going to have some real benefits for bigger companies that can move fast. In our space and in many spaces serving professionals, the underlying content, we talked a lot about RAG, retrieval augmented generation. What are you retrieving to make the generation matters. And so for us in legal, Thomson Reuters has the best, most worldwide database of law, commentary on law, et cetera. And that's part of why we joined. We saw an opportunity to take our technology and their content and make a better world and better product. And so I think there's 2 sides to this. Obviously, startups can start from day one as an AI company. And I think that's going to be incredibly powerful and something that you can't match at slower moving companies with very classic kind of innovator dilemma kind of situations happening internally.
Perfect. Thanks, Jake. Now, as you answer the same question, Shishir, also take on, there's a related one. Giving away such apps for free to corporate clients in a PLG fashion, is that something that you'd consider?
Yeah, maybe to start with your answer, we did not join an incumbent. And they are all innovating in the space. But I think one thing to remember, as I think many of you here are starting companies or starting products that may compete with someone, is that they have some advantage. They have a distribution advantage. But it's almost like their feet are stuck in concrete. Their users expect a certain behavior. Their sales team expects a certain model. The products fit a certain way into a company. And your opportunity is you get to start from scratch, and you get to build a whole new thing. That's certainly what I think we were able to do with Coda, is build a document that looked pretty different than what any of them have been able to come up with. In terms of building applications in the enterprise, I mean, our whole thesis on it is that the world of application, I think Arun and I share a lot of this view, is there's a set of applications we're all going to build, one size fits all, one way everybody does it, but there's a very vast set of applications that really are different per person, per team, per company, and it's important to enable the people inside the company to build their own applications. So I think what we do with Coda isn't so much that we build applications that other people can quickly use, it's that we give them the building blocks to be able to craft their own.
Perfect. Awesome. So the other question I have for Richard and Arun. So many universities and schools, they restrict students using LLMs for coursework. What do you think the limits should be in enterprise? You first, Richard.
So first, it's kind of funny when your parents use a tool in their work every day, and then the school does not allow you to use the tool. I think that shows you that the school needs to update, just like with calculators and many other tools. I think it makes sense. Generative AI is really, really powerful when it takes a very long time to create an artifact, but it takes a very short amount of time to verify its usefulness or correctness. So for example, it takes you forever to paint a beautiful painting, but it takes you only a few seconds to look at it and say, wow, that's beautiful or not. And likewise with text, it's only useful if you can verify quickly whether that text is actually correct and didn't hallucinate something. And so it might make sense to update classwork to say, hey, here's already the GPT-4 generated text. You verify that it's actually correct, because that is the kind of job that you'll need to do. Same in the enterprise. I think in enterprise applications, you're going to have to more and more often learn to read very fast, verify very quickly, and then make more and more executive decisions because AI will do the grunt work for you.
Perfect. Awesome. Arun, skip that question because we're going to take a last one. You are, because it just came in, awesome question, and then we'll go to lunch. You say AI makes us more human, but it feels like it's taken over all the interesting creative tasks. How do we retain value for human creativity?
It's a great question. So Navneet was alluding earlier to, many of you, if you've been to MIT events, have seen me freestyle rap, and that's a thing I do outside of this. And the reason it's very relevant is because I was at an event recently, and they were asking me, hey, can you freestyle rap at this event? And what was cool is that was one of those things. They were like, I know ChatGPT didn't do this. I'm seeing you right now. I just threw words at you. I'm not telling you all to do this right now, but they like threw 4 words at me and were like, hey, can you rap for us? And the end result was that we did, and it was such a cool experience, and they appreciated it even more because they saw it happening in real time, right? I think what's happening is a lot of the boring stuff that could be done by robots, by the machines, now is being done, and it's actually forcing us to say, cool, what are we actually good at? What can we actually be creative about? And so what's happening here is, again, in the example I gave to, go away from the music side, this guy has awesome creativity. He's like, I want to put all these things together, didn't know how to code, now has these tools at his fingertips and is able to actually build these incredible solutions rather than for go on the ground, ship a machine in a box and come back, right? His job has entirely changed and he's entirely leveled up. And I think the cool part about AI is it makes us ask the question, what do we care about as humans? Who are we? What do we want to do? And what do we appreciate? Everything else the machines will do, and the really cool experiences, the drawing, the music, the story behind all of that, that's what we get to do. And that's why I think it's so cool to say, hey, whatever the machines can do, that's no longer human, right? It's redefining what human tasks are, right? Not everybody has to be a farmer for food anymore. Machines help redefine that. So what we could do higher level, cooler things. And AI is that next kind of step function that's allowing us to level up as humans, which I'm so excited about.
Perfect. Great answer and perfect note for us to go grab some lunch. Thanks, guys, for staying late.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.